In this video tutorial, we are going to look at how to add the very complex customized texture or structure to the density in an object in Shape version 5. Here we have set up a simple spherical object which has a density modifier and a shell modifier to make it thin. And we're going to use the texture modifier to add new structure. Select texture modifier and then go down, scroll down. This texture modifier will be applied to the density. You have several options. You can add it to several different physical quantities. We're going to use density. And to add the structure, we're going to use an external image which you add here. However, let's first create such an image, simple image, in Gimp, which is a free image editing software. So we have a 400 by 400 image prepared here with a blank image, and we're going to add structure to it. Say let's something recognizably simple, like a smiley face. Okay, just like that. And then you can export this image to a PGN file or other popular format. And now you load this image into Shape, into the texture modifier. Now click on Edit Widget, which you display, and now your image is shown in the 3D view. Maybe this is too small compared to the sphere. We can increase the size of the image in world coordinates. And now we can try to render, and we'll see that. Let's see how it's oriented in the render view. This is the render view. Let's rotate this. Right. And then render. Let's get rid of the slit for the moment. As you can see, we have our sphere and our smiley face is actually in black. So it's darkened. This is not what we want. We want brighter. We want actually only the smiley face. Now, problem is our intensity is dark. Either you can invert your image or you can do it right in Shape mathematically by changing the magnitude. The grayscale is used between 0 and 1. Black is 0 and white is 1, which is our x-coordinate. Our x-coordinate in this case is the brightness from 0 to 1, which is then added or multiplied to the density. In this case, we want to invert the brightness, so we apply 1 minus x and see what we get. Now it's bright, but our square is now dark and has changed the brightness of the background. Let's see how to fix that by scaling, by using the scale modifier here, the scale operation. See what happens. Same thing, that's fine. Now, to get only what is in the image, we set our original density modifier to 0. And then we should not delete this density modifier. And then set our operation to add re-render, and now we have only our structure. Of course, the density you can multiply by any factor. You could say take 10 times and then square the whole thing, apply, to get a slightly different image. Otherwise it's the same. Okay, that's basically how you can do this. Now for workflow, what you can do is you work on two screens, or you have the windows side by side, and you can add, for example, very small scale structure, like some lines up here, like filaments in a nebula, for example, and then hit Control E and it exports it right away. And you just we have this auto update function where you start and then it reads the information and your image is updated. You can stop this, best to stop this, and then re-render, and your structure is updated. So you can have very fine structure. Now there are different projection options here. Right now we have a plane projection, so it projects the image along the arrow, that is the green arrow, onto the object as a plane. However, you could choose this radial option. Then it gets projected as from the center outwards. If you just do that like that, you will not get any output because your projection is just along the plane and has no actual extension. You're projecting just along the plane, and that's 0. So you have to displace the plane a little bit to get a sensible projection. Open the widget, and then you can move the widget, say for example 30 by an amount of 30 along the y-axis, which is the green arrow, and then your radial projection makes more sense. You will project from the center outwards through the plane of the image. And let's see what we get. Now we have a spherical projection onto a radial projection onto the sphere, and as you can see, the face is slightly distorted due to being projected along a radial ray, but that may be necessary or desirable in some cases. So this is basically how you can add very complex fine structure to any object. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. If you're using different operating systems, now and then it may happen that the image is not read properly. In that case, you get an error message in the information module here, so it can't open the object, the image, and that may be because different operating systems use different ways of accessing the directories with slash or backslash. So make sure your directory is correctly read. And that's basically it. Thank you. Building on a previous tutorial on texture modifier that changes the density according to the pattern on an image that you might have taken from observations or have built yourself in an external image processing program such as Gimp. We will now show how a similar technique can be applied to actually deform, change the geometry of an object. Here we have our standard sphere, and we'll now add an image displacement modifier, which works pretty much the same way as an texture modifier. We add our smiley image and then have a look at it using the widget, enabling the widget. Here's our smiley. And this is a little small, so we make it bigger. And in this case, we again have to change how the brightness in the image is interpreted. We want to invert the image, so white is 0 and black is 1, so we subtract x, which is the brightness, from 1. That inverts the action. And now we can, well, this is too small, it doesn't do much, so we multiply this by, say, 20. Oops, wrong parentheses. Okay, that should do. Here now we can see how the structure of the geometry of the sphere has been changed according to the image. Right? Now this is easier to see when the sphere has higher resolution of the mesh, let's say 60. It takes a second to rebuild. Here we are. As you can see, the face is now imprinted in the mesh structure. And as before, this can apply it as a radial projection instead of a plane projection we have now, but for that we have to move our face a little bit along the axis and then click enable radial, which will change the structure here. Alright, now we have a radial projection from the center of our face. That's maybe a bit too much, so let's there are two ways to make this smaller. Change the size of the image. Okay, that's more reasonably proportioned. And let's have a look at the render. There you go. Here's our rendered face. Now we can see this because of the change in the structure of the sphere. So you can apply any changes to the structure of the sphere by using an image drawn in Gimp or similar software where you export the image quickly and reload the image by clicking on the auto update start button and then stop again after a second or so. If you leave this on, it will update every second or whatever interval you set here. That's sometimes inconvenient at render time. So that's about it about this image displacement modifier. Thank you.